Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Uh, I am. We are on the second day of this wonderful conference. I want to compliment the organizers, IMA, as well as Professor Rajan Saxena, as well as Dr. Pramod Sinha for organizing this, and of course also to invite me to share my views as well as have a conversation with some very eminent panelists. the uh, the name of the session or the title of the session that was shared is Changing Employment Landscape. And as I was talking to my fellow panelists, Dr. Vinnie Jauhari, whom we can see right now, uh, she wears multiple hats, and I'm sure she'll wear all of them in this conversation that we have today. And Dr. Vinnie Jauhari is an educationist, but now very heavily involved in the technology and services industry. She is the Director Education Advocacy at Microsoft Corporation India Limited, Private Limited, and is also leading the learning and skills activity of Microsoft Corporation. She manages strategic engagements and evangelism programs in education. So comes with a very vast and diverse and in-depth experience. I decided to put some labels on people, on my fellow panelists. So I labeled her as somebody who will represent technology, services, and now I should say education. She is very much like we have lifelong learners, which I'm sure all of us are or will have to become. She is a lifelong teacher. She's changed so many lives, and it's just so impressive to listen to her. So, Vinnie, thank you very much for joining. I'm waiting for the second panelist, and I'll introduce her as she comes in. But let me get along with the topic of the session. The topic of the session, like we were discussing yesterday, is vast enough for us to not only spend the 1 hour that we have, but actually spend the rest of the day. And I'm sure a lot of what we are going to discuss has already been discussed. And we will try to bring out some very specific areas that we believe will definitely add value to the audience. So just to set the context, what I wanted to say was as follows. We've been working with this term. Oh, very nice. We have our second panelist with us, and I might as well finish introducing her as well. So I have great pleasure in introducing Mrs. Vinita Bajoria. She is an industrialist and is involved with a number of what she calls traditional industries. And that, by the way, is a changing employment landscape, which we will be discussing because that is also a very important part of present. And Vinita, before you came, I said we will we will try to put labels on our panelists so that we know what do they specialize in. So Vinita represents industry or manufacturing industry more specifically, but then with the diversity and diverse experience that she has of having been associated with multiple organizations and the amount that she has been studying and continues to study. I called Vinita, just before you came, I called her a lifelong teacher. So I'm going to call you a lifelong learner with your permission. And I must say that you are a lifelong learner as well as teacher, and so is Vinnie, and we all are. But I just thought we will talk about these aspects of what does it mean in the current changing employment landscape. So I was saying that the present times have indeed been very volatile, and the term VUCA, which we have been using for last 10 years, has now, I think, perhaps become a part of Oxford Dictionary. If not, it should become, because I think every now and then the most commonly used word that one comes across is unprecedented. Everything that is happening is unprecedented. It has not happened before. We haven't had a pandemic which has covered the whole humanity in one shot. We have not had an adversity of this kind which affects the whole humanity simultaneously. So unprecedented. The amount of technology and the way technology has been put to use is unprecedented as a response to this pandemic. And I must say, one benefit of the technology advancements which were knocking on the doorstep of industry for a long period of time, and the world was divided between naysayers and fence sitters and some eager beavers. I think everybody is now fully aligned and understands the role which digital technologies specifically are going to be playing. And therefore, the future of work, which we used to say is 5 years away and 10 years away, I think is now beginning to come closer on the horizon and much, much more visible. The acceptance of this phenomenon itself, I think, is causing an acceleration. The other outcome which has happened is that in this employment changing scenario landscape, which I would say, we not only have the impact of technology, the impact of work, but also an impact on the workplace. And that has a very, very specific significance on the future or on the employment landscape. As if this was not enough at an environment point of view, just to define the complexity of the situation that we are in. Number one, the employee, the quintessential employee that we were used to is not the same. We now have, at this point of time, the employees that are coming into the organization are not coming in thinking that they are going to get a lifelong employment. Neither will they get, nor do they want. Not only that, in fact, there are others on the other extreme which are talking about gig workers. They say we not only don't want a lifelong work, I actually would be happy to work a few hours a day. And maybe I would like to work with 2 or 3 organizations. So gig workers is a new phenomenon. We have a multi-generational workforce now in front of us, right? We have the baby boomers who are still struggling with technology. We have the millennials who had reasonable comfort with technology. And now we have the Gen Z who, when their umbilical cord is cut, comes out a Wi-Fi router. They are so connected with the world that technology comes very, very naturally to them, and they come with very specific traits. We've discussed generation gaps for long periods of time, and it has always existed. But I think the way it is manifesting itself now, I think, is something which has an impact on the employment landscape. We have 2 additional problems which have just additional opportunities which have just come up. The whole opportunity of the Great Resignation, where people who went back to their home place or wherever else now do not want to come back to the workplace. In the West, many were furloughed, and now they don't want to come back to the same job. New problem. And then there is, in closer home, we have a war for talent, where just about the attrition rates have gone up. People are not able to find good enough people. So there is a big churn in the employee place. The employer environment landscape has changed also. We earlier were large employment was with manufacturing industries, and then the services industry came up. And in the recent times, the innovation industry, the startups have come up, and I think they are also new employers. And this is a new employment landscape on one hand. Obviously, it is having a large effect on the kind of employees these employers will be looking forward. And I'm sure we will, since both of you are employers, I'm sure we'll be talking about that as well. The work itself has changed quite a bit, and there is a big, huge change taking place. Individual worker or an individual excellent is no longer the only thing which is required to succeed. Teamwork has a very, very important role to play. The outcome that people used to be measured for earlier was whether you showed up in the office and spent your full time and did something, then led to results. Now the metrics for measurement of your success are moving to how innovative you have been, how many new ideas you've been able to come up, and how agile have you been to learn new skills and get cracking. Diversity and inclusivity are very, very important. Diversity at workplace has suddenly taken a new role, because in the new environment that we are in, we are also realizing that getting every gender an equal opportunity to work at workplace is very, very significant, and I'm sure we will talk about that. On the other hand, we also have the whole issue of saying what should the worker come with, because the work itself with automation and new roles is defining newer competencies. There is a term which is emerging, which started in the technology services industry, which was of a full stack developer. I think I would like to remove the word developer and say now every professional has to be a full stack professional. A full stack professional is one who is multifunctional, who has holistic competencies to work across disciplines, is able to learn very fast, right? Is able to do all parts of the job. The manufacturing industry started with the assembly line principle, but the assembly line principle in the innovation industry is not working out. So the whole need for a full stack professional. Technology industry saw this need and have acted, and organizations are preparing themselves for it. We are an active member of, we as my company and our university is an active member of this movement. But what we are realizing is that in every function, we need full stack professionals. And last but not the least, as if everything else was okay and everything else used to be stable, at least everybody used to go to a place called my workplace, my office, my factory, my this. The concept of workplace itself has been put into a question mark. So the workplace itself is now no longer work from office, it moved to work from home, but I think it's now moving on to work from anywhere. So if you're going to work from anywhere and your employees who have not seen each other, and we are all experiencing those people who have never seen each other and are colleagues for the last 2 years, and have to deliver results and have to come up with innovative outcomes which require teamwork, I think is a sufficient amount of complexity that we can discuss. I'm sure we will not discuss all the elements, but I just wanted to lay the canvas open for all of us and decide which corner of the canvas do we want to paint on. What I would do is I will make it simple for the two panelists I have, and I'm going to ask them first to define how do they see this in the ambience and the label that unfortunately you got attached with willingly or not so willingly. But if you can, you can talk about anything else that you would feel like. And I also know that you come with very diverse and deep interests. I'm very familiar with Vinita's very special involvement in spirituality. So I want to see what role does that have to play. But maybe we cross that bridge in the in the second part of our discussion. And I also know Vinnie's passion for social and emotional resilience, and we'll talk about that also. So those are softer issues, and maybe have great answers to some of this changing employment landscape. So without further ado, may I start with Vinita? And Vinita, let's go back to the traditional industry that you claim you're coming from. You are a modern thinker in the traditional industry. How are you? What are you experiencing? And then we'll come up with how are you coping with it. Over to you, Vinita. You are on mute. That's the most commonly used term of 2020. You're still on mute.
Yeah. I think that's it. Yeah. Hi, everybody. First of all, I would like to thank all of you for having me here, the organizers. And thank you, Mr. Thadani. I think that was a fabulous introduction. And of course, first, to begin with, I would first like to set the context that, yes, as we all know, that we are in the midst of a profound economic and social transformation. And this has actually been catalyzed by the rapid advances in automation, artificial intelligence, and unlimited access to data and computation. And the impact of these technologies actually pervades nearly every sector of our economy. And it is actually affecting a wide range of occupations across all healthcare, finance, transportation, energy, and last but not the least, manufacturing, which is where I come from. So, before, touching upon how it is impacting industry, I would like to make a few interesting observations, if I may, that as with the previous industrial revolutions, these advances actually have the potential to bring about extraordinary benefits to the society. Like we oftentimes talk about technological disruption in a very bad, very negative manner. And we say that, jobs will go away, jobs will disappear, machines will take over. But actually, these advances actually have the potential to bring about extraordinary benefits to the society, and it can contribute to enormous prosperity in the long run. So, but having said that, these innovations will actually transform the future of work, which is not necessarily, a bad thing. It will definitely, it will, exacerbate the skill bias. But then that again is really good because it will, give people the motivation to upskill and reskill. And it will also widen the chasm between the least and the most educated in the society. Now, while some jobs will be highly automated, others will change significantly because of technology. New markets, industries, and jobs will definitely be created. Now, again, who could have ever imagined that a tiny gadget like a cell phone could actually obliterate or replace 50 technologies and gadgets that we have virtually grown up with. So that is the kind of change. And of course, renewable energy is making tremendous progress. And now we are getting solar and other, energy sources at a fraction of their earlier cost. Again, the advent of electrical vehicle is, of course, completely new in the field of energy generation and utilization. Now, 3D manufacturing has actually, again, here I would like to, just put in my observations. So, we started with cottage industry where we could, just service, we could make, customized products at very, in very limited numbers. From there on, we moved on to assembly line, standardization. And, Henry Ford's famous dialogue, you can have any car as long as it's black. But now with the help of technology, we've actually come around a full circle, whereby with the help of a 3D printer, which is actually like a cottage industry, because you don't need those sheds and those fancy, material handling equipments and just in time. You just have that printer, and sitting from your garage, you can print out a completely customized product, and at such a fast pace that you can actually service customers all around the world. And only technology has helped increase the market size and increase the productivity. But it has brought us back to the full circle. So that is the kind of change which is actually good. And it, whatever it takes away in terms of jobs, it actually gives back in terms of higher productivity and increased output and increased turnovers for industry. So this actually becomes a competitive edge, and you actually have the capability of increasing your turnover exponentially by using these technologies. Now, the days of autonomous cars, it's no longer a phenomenon but a reality. So again, a generation ago now, who could have imagined that a career playing video games could have even existed? But today, a $1 billion a year esport industry is there. So similarly, these new careers which are being thrown up is actually proving to, it's actually showing that people, like, coming back to what Mr. Thadani was referring to, spirituality. Like, earlier, before the steam engine, the whole debate was around when the horse carriages were being replaced by cars. The whole debate was around that what would the horses do? They would be unemployed. But actually, horses were not meant to draw carriages. They were meant to do better things like horse racing, etc. So it freed them for that. Similarly, we human beings are actually not meant to do mental heavy lifting that we have been doing, also physical heavy lifting. So technology, both in terms of which are replacing mental skills, like more computation and artificial intelligence and deep learning, and again automation like robotics, it's freeing human beings from mental and physical heavy lifting and actually freeing up time for them to do better things, whereas the job component maybe in terms of hours might be reduced, but actually the output will go up exponentially, their earnings will go up, they will get an incentive to reskill, upskill, and the free time can be used to actually hone the human skills which are so much in demand today: critical thinking, emotional quotient, empathy, out of box thinking, by resorting to more spirituality and further studies and philosophy and recreation, which will actually improve their overall quality of life. Because COVID has actually moved the focus of the workforce, and they are seriously reconsidering the role of work in their lives. Nowadays, even advanced economies don't have enough jobs to keep their workforce engaged for a full week. Just recently, you must have read that Belgium has given its citizens the option to go for a 4-day work week. So this is how I look at, the technological, advancement, the huge technological advancement that we are looking at. This is exactly how I look at it, panning out. And of course, I would love to speak more about it and touch upon the metaverse, which is the next big thing. So can I touch upon it now, Mr. Thadani, or should I wait till Vinnie?
No, we would definitely want to hear, and I'll make a note of that. But
Yes.
I just wanted to see how is this changing employment landscape helping or hurting or causing a change in your workplace, that is the manufacturing industry. You want to touch upon that?
Yes, definitely. So, how it is changing, honestly speaking, we are facing a huge talent scarcity. So this talent scarcity is actually a blessing in disguise. Why? Because it gives us as employers a lot more incentive to invest in upskilling, reskilling our employees. It also gives the employees, it makes it actually, you know, uh, they will become redundant if they don't upskill and reskill. So they are left with no option. So this actually improves the quality of workers that we are getting. I mean, earlier, definitely the numbers may reduce, but then again, those numbers, when they get reskilled and when our, because of this better quality output and more output, the sheer turnovers increase, then those same workforce, we could take them in their new reskilled avatars, which would actually augur very well and would be a win-win for both industry and the workers. So we are actually shifting the paradigm instead. And if we were to just look at the, absolute figures, yes, it's alarming. Industry is facing shortage, workers are not getting jobs. But if we look at it relative to the skill sets needed and the skill sets which are actually very essential to move the productivity frontier, then I would say it is a huge blessing, because that's, again, the quality enhancement is there, and so many other intangible benefits, and of course it all translates into tangible benefits, and the bottom line, of course, increases.
Yeah, and I can see that. I think one interesting point which you're making is that when the new talent comes into the organization and they are coming with different skills, they become catalysts for helping the others to realize, look, I can be like this if I can reskill myself, so that hunger for reskilling will come.
Definitely,
So,
they set a great example.
yeah.
And even organizations are setting examples. We as organizations, honestly, have not, especially in our traditional industries, we have not invested enough in our workforce. So we need to do that, because it's actually not an expense. It is an investment which actually pays back many more times. The payback, if you see, is actually so fast, and it has so many other, benefits, that it's actually worthwhile to invest in not only reskilling but also in upgrading our technology, upgrading the machines, which makes way for a much better, working environment. The hygiene, the total hygiene of the industry, the traditional industry, it changes.
Very correct. Very interesting. But just tag this metaverse, and you just use the word spirituality, but you stop there. So those are two things which we'll come back to.
Sure.
Let me switch to Vinnie. So Vinnie, in your world, what do you see as the changing employment landscape? What are the moving forces? What are the moving parts?
Sure. First of all, thank you, Vijay, for a very warm introduction, and good afternoon to all of you. And thank you for inviting me here to share my thoughts. So the nature of change is very, very rapid. If we look at the services segment, there are huge technology shifts that are happening. We are at the cusp of the fourth industrial revolution, which is powered by technologies like artificial intelligence, big data, cloud technologies, IoT. And as per the Future of Jobs survey from the World Economic Forum 2020, it shares the data that 80 to 90% of the businesses will embrace cloud, artificial intelligence, data, IoT in their operations. Security aspects will become very, very important. And if you look at multiple service segments, right from education to financial industry to retailing, healthcare segment, logistics, hospitality and tourism, there are profound changes which are powered by technology and has impact on the employment as well. So there is a huge demand for talent, which is exposed to areas like cloud, artificial intelligence, big data, and they range not only from technology developers but to business development and artificial intelligence experts, data scientists, data analytics. And across segments, we are seeing a huge amount of startups happening as well. I'll share some examples to bring in more clarity on the thoughts that I have expressed. For example, if we look at education, there have been massive investments that have happened here. If you look at startups that are emanating from India, India stands at number 3 in the world in terms of absolute number of startups that are happening. In education segment, the digital footprint is vastly increasing. You talked about the nature of workplace evolving, so hybrid forms of learning. Online edtech companies have seen massive investments in very short periods of time. For example, Byju's is one of the largest edtech players in the world, is hiring big time, has hired 5,000 people, hiring 8,000 more numbers. Unacademy, for instance, has increased its workforce within a year from 600 to 4,000. You look at the nature of investments in companies like Upgrade, its annual worth is $3.3 billion. Eruditus, which is $3.2 billion, which offers upskilling courses from multiple global universities through the online channels. Class Plus, $65 million were invested in the organization last year. So there are more investments, bigger markets, more jobs, and with talent that has a high degree of technology intensity in their work component. I'll also come down to finance as well. Fintech is world's fastest growing industry with 67% of 2,100 fintech entities in operation in India. It's valued at about $50 to $60 billion. And by the year 2025 will grow to about $150 billion. So you can imagine the amount of jobs that will get thrown open. You talk about healthcare sector. Narayana hospitals, for example, have transformed their patient care. They, for example, for one of their specializations, which is around monitoring the condition of heart, you have wonderful 3D outputs where an individual can monitor over periods of time how the condition of heart is evolving. That could have been unthinkable of, because earlier there were textual reports or a report that a common man could not understand. But if you have visual insights into how the muscle of the heart are evolving, I think it's the nature of jobs, the kind of outputs, the services that are rendered to consumers are at a very different level. Likewise, in ITS, McKinsey and Company have forecasted that software as a service companies have the potential to create $1 trillion in value and 500,000 new jobs by the year 2030. So technology is opening multiple frontiers of unprecedented opportunities for employment and upskilling. We've read in the public reports, TCS is hiring almost 1.2 lakh people this year and investing in exposure to cloud to almost 50,000 engineers with certifications, industry certifications on board as well. Freshworks, which started as a SaaS player in 2010, is hiring from 13 global locations and has over 4,100 employees. So you look at the scale, the kind of wonderful new innovations that are happening in agriculture. Meesho, which is a social e-commerce company, is onboarded 15 million entrepreneurs, especially women across India, to become financially independent. So they have brought them closer to the marketplace. So it's an unprecedented revolution. It has led to market forces coming together by way of policy, by way of financial opportunities, and bringing in aspirations of a young population which has great ideas and actually can put them to practice. So in terms of talent, I think, as you rightly said, millennials look out for flexibility. They look out for better assignments, and they look at using their talent in meaningful ways. So great times. And this also brings us in terms of change. We need to look at competencies that are required to be successful, which are a combination of not only technical skills, but social emotional skills. Life is going to be more complex. So having a monk mindset, having a long-term approach to life, having social emotional resilience so that you can bring simplicity to very complex situations, high degree of integrity, growth mindset, which is beyond seeing the conventional ways of doing things, ability to work in diverse environments and work with global workforce are all aspects that employers are looking at. We are also looking at new kind of leadership, which is more like facilitating and creating opportunities for manifestation of potential of people. And for education institutions, this has huge responsibility to anchor the shift in teaching and learning practices. So faculty, school or institutional leaders will have to transform themselves to embrace new generation curriculum, invest in mentorship of students, and also embrace industry level certifications as well, so that the talent that emanates out of these institutions is successful for a long term and have a learning mindset. And I'll just stop here. Thank you.
So I think we have, all three of us have amplified the problem that we have with our great inputs and experiences, right? So I think we will leave the audience kind of halfway if we just told them what is the big problem that we have, right? I think we should now switch discussions, with your permission, to both of you. Let's switch discussion to what have we done about it. So maybe we can talk about a little bit of our experiences. So I thought if we can just pick up two threads, which may be very useful. We have a bunch of, we divide the world in two parts. One part is which is already working in the industry, right? What do we do? Very, very clearly, they need a transformation. The workplace is transforming, work is transforming, people are transforming, employees are transforming, plus global disruption. So let's talk about a couple of examples that we have in our respective organizations where we have done something to look at the existing workforce we have, and what are we doing to transform them, not only through technical skills, functional skills they have because they already are there, but also behavioral skills. Because we are now realizing that behavioral skills which we used to take for granted, of camaraderie, of belonging to the same organization and having the same organization culture, which used to happen by being in the same, under the same roof and standing at the same coffee machine, is not there. So two elements of how we are handling, how are we upgrading our technology skills, how are we bringing in critical thinking and other skills and problem solving skills, and how are we doing handling behavioral skills. So we could talk about that as one part. Then we'll talk about what is happening on the other side, which is those who are wanting to come into the organizations. What should we do? But let's start with that. So Vinita, over to you, or we can switch order this time.
As you wish.
Oh, let's go with you now that you responded.
Great. So just to get the question right, first you want to know that exactly what is the skill gap which exists right now?
No, I'm trying to say we figured out that there is a skill gap.
Yes.
And it's in three areas. One is technological skills. Second is even the kind of work they used to do, which is more problem solving and critical thinking involvement. And the third is more behavioral skills, which we used to take for granted because now they may be working from anywhere, so they would not have the benefit. What are organizations that you come across and are associated with? What are they doing to handle these?
So now, Mr. Thadani, if I may, I would like to, give a general answer to this question, because honestly, to set the context, right now, the kind of change that we are going through is totally unprecedented. So we cannot draw on any past experience. Nobody has any past knowledge of how to deal with the kind of transformation, because honestly, as it is, technology was moving in leaps and bounds, and COVID has accelerated the pace to such an extent that one can just put numbers to it, cite World Economic Forum report and shared prosperity report for upskilling. But honestly speaking, the kind of transformation which is taking place even within our industries and outside of our industry is something which people have not seen. And not only the change vertically but also horizontally, like across, we are not only moving from, we are seeing total paradigm shifts happening, which is actually urging us to prepare the people not by skilling them in any particular area, but by changing behaviors and mindsets and attitudes. Because once these change, then whatever, say it's from, from supercomputing to quantum computing, from, subtractive manufacturing to additive manufacturing, from physical world to metaverse, from currencies to cryptocurrency, from the single ledger to distributed ledger or blockchain. That is only a matter of taking a course and learning it. And that today, as we know it, it might drastically change tomorrow. So if we say that, yes, today I have learned what blockchain is and I am set, that is not true. I have to have the attitude and the mental, the mindset to keep on learning as I go along, because that is the rate at which the change is taking place. So what we need to invest in is actually, honing the adaptability quotient, which COVID has shown us. And honestly, again, touching back upon our scriptures, in Arthashastra, which was written by Chanakya, who was the master kingmaker and the chief strategist and economist, he actually spoke about it. So there he also says one thing, that chintan, not chinta needed. For those who can't understand Hindi, chintan is you need to deliberate. Chinta is worrying. So if that mindset can be inculcated in people, that do not worry, think, plan. There are courses available which companies like ours can offer to employees, like I had said earlier, which is such a great investment and a win-win. So, by doing that, we make them job ready. But first, we have to make them ready to get into the mindset, because being a lifelong student is not easy. And especially for workers, they often have this mindset, oh, hum to sab jante hain, I know everything. So that know-it-all attitude, to change that, you actually need to work a lot on the human skills, and that can actually happen with the help of philosophy, with the help of scriptural studies, with the help of spirituality, because now people are realizing that the universe outside us is changing as it is. We need to change the universe inside us. So that can only be done by these things. And we actually, we have to develop strategic thinking. So how do you do that? Like earlier, as you would know that Chanakya actually invented the game of chess, which was not a game, but it was actually done. It was done to teach that there are winners and losers. So one has to be okay with that and how to move strategically. So nowadays, also actually by playing these games, like the gaming industry I was talking about, and which has really developed, you actually develop critical thinking, strategic thinking. So there is a positive to everything. And now again, there is a huge issue of leadership, because leadership in this turbulent environment is actually so important, because people are actually looking for good leaders. So a leader actually has to be a good judge of situations to take the right decision. Now, again, going back to spirituality, our scriptures, in Chanakya spoke about anvikshiki, which is the science of thinking. So there, they say that there is such a huge difference between thinking and strategic thinking. So, you have to think philosophically, and men actually don't like thinking, as it takes up a lot of energy. But leaders have to ask the difficult questions and the right questions, because there are no perfect answers. So one has to be okay with failures. So this is the general answer I'm giving. But if you want me to be more specific, then I will, talk about, yes, the more industry academia collaboration is needed, whereby universities have to give vocational education.
We'll come to this. We'll come to this. That's on the other side of the fence.
Right.
But let's talk about. So I think you brilliantly brought about this whole thing about Chinta and Chintan. So you are obviously not doing Chinta on what is happening on your workforce, but you are doing some Chintan on your workforce. So are there any specific actions or initiatives which have taken place in the group of organizations that you are associated with?
Yes, we are definitely investing a lot more on training.
So that is one trend which I'm noticing.
Definitely,
that people are investing much more in
much more. We are opening ITIs, we are training, we are reskilling, we are offering them, incentives to take up courses, study more, and also on the job training. So, getting experts from outside, training them, and basically, teaching them the latest technology, buying new machines, and getting the manufacturers to come and educate them, moving from PLC to PAC, embracing industry 4.0, making sure that they, learn as they go along. Because now, everything has become so user friendly, drop down menus and all. It doesn't take much time. The marginal investment is actually in teaching them is actually very low, and payback is very high. So yes,
got it.
I've seen
I just want to remind all of us that we have a very important responsibility. We are standing between us, between our audience and their lunch. So we'll have to just manage our time a little bit. We have about 11 minutes. We'll leave the last 2-3 minutes for summarization. But Vinnie, if you can quickly touch upon what are the initiatives which are taking place, then we will switch to what should be done by academia. We are discussing Higher Education Council's conference. So I'm sure one takeaway will be what should be done on industry academia, which I think, Vinita, you alluded to, but I kind of stopped you. So just, Vinnie, if you can quickly touch upon the initiatives you folks are taking.
Yeah, so there are a lot of initiatives, both for the internal audience as well as the external stakeholders. So first is with the new shifts happening and to leverage the opportunity that is being thrown open by the change, Microsoft put together a huge number of courses which are available on MS Learn. There are more than 3,200 modules that are available to internal employees as well as external entities, universities, colleges, developers, partners, and these are linked with job roles as well. So someone wants to become a data scientist, an artificial intelligence developer, cloud specialist, sustainable software engineering, sustainable goals. Those modules can be done. And for all the employees, it was not about just preaching to external folks, but also living this on a daily basis. So rather than from know it all to learn it all was the fundamental shift that happened both within and outside. So we were all as employees went through the certification processes ourselves, aligned with our job roles. So on the technology side, there was this huge amount of effort that was made. And even for customers to embrace that switch. So special assistance programs were given for manufacturing, for service companies, from startups, and every single employee took that. This charter was taken to bring that knowledge and upgrade that knowledge into the ecosystem. And this is all available online and, very nicely done sessions on demand. There is MS Learn TV. And to upgrade the faculty as well, so there is Microsoft Learn for educators, where they can just sign in, they will get access to teaching materials that they can have an access. They become part of global communities so that they learn from each other. They know how to manage those projects, how to leverage sandbox environments. And for students, there was mentorship on GitHub, which is the world's largest open source, where they could do projects on multiple industry segments. Students could become student ambassadors, learn from each other. On the social emotional aspect, the culture aspect, so allyship is a core value, wherein you lean on each other. So we look at not only what we bring to the table in terms of competence, but what we can learn from others. And lean in is a very important, cultural aspect. And then reverse mentorship. There is it's a culture of inclusion where age, gender, caste, color, nothing, there are no barriers. So everybody feels included. Accessibility is a core charter, because our world is diverse and that diversity needs to be reflected at the workplace as well. And
Sorry, I'm sorry, you want to complete something that you are left? I thought you were done, sorry.
So, and then with the external environment as well, empowering student voice through education apps like Flipgrid or gamified learning approaches through Minecraft are all areas that Microsoft invested in.
Wonderful. So actually, we would also handle one question from everybody. How is academia coping up with the capacity level in the light of the changing employment prospects? And what is your experience in industry academia interfaces? I will talk about mine, and provided we are left with some time. But if we can make short responses, because I think we have only a few minutes left.
Yeah, sure. I think there is a huge amount of change that we are witnessing with several large universities and institutes as well. We are seeing they are very willing to embrace, make changes in the curriculum. Newer specializations like cloud AI, data sciences, security are there. Universities are also investing in upskilling their faculty. They are also very open to encourage students to undergo, industry relevant courses and industry relevant certifications as well. Government of AP is investing in 300 government college students to get themselves skilled. 2 lakh students are getting skilled. So this is a very good example of how that mind shift is happening in the external education landscape.
Okay. Vinita, your view?
Yeah, of course. I mean, there is a far greater industry academia, partnership. We are seeing a lot of people, going back sending people to these universities and institutes for short-term executive courses and, one-year executive courses, also these shorter module courses. And also, the universities actually sending a lot of their faculty along with students to the industry to gain real, time, to take back the real-time case studies back to the classes. In terms of, like, as you would know, Harvard Business School has this field study whereby the students, go to various countries, to various industries to work and, initiate startups and get back the experience. So getting back real life experience to the classroom actually makes, this learning so much more meaningful, and makes them more industry ready, work ready. And same, it's a very give and take relationship that is taking place, which is actually going up.
Yeah. So let me add my bit to it in the little time that we have. I think for a long time, we have all been saying, those of us who are involved in the industry for a long period of time, that industry, education, society, government, formal education as different from professional education, these are all disconnected islands. They are disconnected islands with an occasional ferry service which runs between these islands. The ferry service between society and the education runs when they come to drop students. The ferry service between education and industry happens when the placement happens, right? The ferry service between government industry happens whenever it's time for budget and various other things. And of course, I'm over exaggerating, but I think in one advantage which digital technologies have brought in is we are able to actually create a larger cooperation between these 5 elements. And one example which employers in technology sector are using, one shift which there are 2 very crying needs. One is what I defined as full stack professional. Full stack is my term, but a more, should I say, a person with the multiple competencies, so that which competency is needed for what kind of a problem can be deployed. And I call the full stack professional as one who has the right amount of technology skills, right amount of functional skills, because we shouldn't forget about functions, just get over enamored with technology, and right amount of behavioral skills. That mix is what I think all academic institutions and higher education institutions are clamoring for. I am associated with the NIT University, NIT, where we are actually practicing some of these and have had some great experiences. But if this connected ecosystem is there, then whether we are discussing the current workforce, which is working in organizations, or the aspiring workforce, which is standing outside and going through education, I think we can bring these together. What is important is, I think you brought some very specific experiences, Vinita, from the place that you are coming from, where how your organization is spending much more on training, making sure that you induct a fresh talent, which will also become catalyst in causing this massive change, which I think is a very important takeaway. Vinnie, I think you talked about how the large-scale cooperation which is taking place between organizations, and I think also the new generation industries and their employment needs, and how organizations such as Microsoft are rising to the occasion through MS Learn is causing this. The foundation of all this is what I call the Nicholas Negroponte's 80s book called Being Digital. I think for once, we as a society are now being digital. We wanted to be and we were asked to be, but we are being digital. And that being digital is manifesting itself in a number of changes which are required in the workplace, which are happening. number of changes taking place in academics, which are beginning to happen, and number of changes in the policy ambience, which need to happen. But overall, the changing employment landscape is an exciting problem to have. It's an exciting problem to have. We should not do chinta about it. We should do chintan about it, like we just did, Vinita. And I'm sure with people and industry members who are putting their heads to it and are demonstrating through live experience. Vinnie referred to a number of them. I think we should be on a good stage. The way we handled the pandemic itself, I think, is a great example. I think India is a poster boy of how we handled the pandemic. And again, being digital was the underlying foundation. So I wish we had more time, like we always say. These are always the last words. I wish we had more time to discuss. I wish we had all the time to answer all the questions.
Thadani, the MC has written that we can take a few more minutes if you would like to go on.
Very good. Then I want you to talk about your favorite subjects.
No, I mean,
talk about metaverse. Talk about, again, it's in the same should I say, genre of conversation. What are the new things happening? So what I notice is, on one hand, we are talking metaverse. On the other hand, we are also talking of going back to spirituality. So a lot of questions which we are seeking, which have impact of technology, the answers lie maybe in our past. So let's talk a little bit about that, and then we'll wrap up. I wrapped up the rest of the part, but definitely.
So, Mr. Thadani, like you said, going back to spirituality and metaverse, actually, these two, it's not linear. We are talking about two different realms. Metaverse is happening in the physical world, whereas spirituality is what is happening in our inner world, and which is actually, increasing the adaptability quotient in us, and which is actually helping us to cope with the changes like metaverse. Instead, so they complement each other. It's not, it's not a linear, journey.
It's not an old and new which have to vary.
No, it's not.
But I think it's
two different realms, which complement each other.
Wonderful.
Actually, like it has been seen that you were just talking about human skills and work skills. So actually, these technical skills have half life, whereas human skills have full life. So human skills is what stays on, and technical skills have typically a 5-year lifespan, which if you are not open to reskilling and upskilling, you have just lost the game. So increasingly, all organizations, even Google, etc., I was just looking at the interview pattern, they are all testing on human skills. So spirituality, actually, why I found it interesting was that it's not actually going back, it's actually coming a full circle, and technology is actually helping us, become spiritual. But using technology, we can actually reach out to the entire world, as opposed to the earlier Guru Shishya Parampara, where, one-to-one teaching was there. So the same thing can be amplified. So that's what, like I spoke about in manufacturing, from cottage industry to 3D, it's the same, it's not one size fits all. It's customized product, but at scale. So same, this is Guru Shishya Parampara at scale. That one guru can actually reach out to the whole world, as opposed to one guru just teaching one, Pandava or, one king. So
wonderful. So, Vinnie, what are your closing comments on this?
I think...
why don't we talk about the social emotional resilience? You referred to it, but didn't talk much. So let's talk about it, because these could be some very interesting takeaways that we have, in addition to all that we discussed.
So social emotional resilience is about having a strong emotional quotient, building emotional intelligence, where one seeks, evolves values of patience, empathy, compassion for people, have mindfulness, in terms of self skills, to be in the learning mode, to be humble, to be respectful, to be tolerant. I think these are all fundamental values that bring in more peace in our interactions at workplace as well as personal space. And today, both the spaces are converging. So it's not that one has a different entity in a workplace and a separate persona at home. So this has to be seamless.
Yeah.
Second is,
in any case, your workplace shifted to home for 2 years. And now it is struggling to find its way back into the into what we call the workplace. And I think workplace, I get very impressed with the Air Force recruitment ad, which says, have a corner office at 50,000 feet. When they are inducting fighter pilots, have your corner office at 50,000 feet. So in many ways, actually, when we look into ourselves and try to reconcile this with what is happening outside, as well as, visit those inner spaces, you are actually operating at that higher platitude, if I may use, and then have your own corner office and a corner, should I say, profession, which is designed for your own self. So I would have liked to continue still more. And before the MC gets back and say, now we don't have any more minutes, let's give them a couple of minutes to extra if need be. Just want to thank each one of you for being here. Some very profound remarks and some very important takeaways. Thank you, Vinita. We could have a separate session on just this subject. And Vinnie, I think your depth of understanding of what is happening in the workplace and the importance of this social emotional resilience in the current setting, where I think there is total massive disruption that we are living in, and there is a big churn which is happening. I think both these are great takeaways which we could have. But I will still end with saying, with all these thoughts, no need for chinta on the evolving employment landscape. We continue to do chintan, and I'm sure the results will follow. So with that, thank you very much. Enjoyed talking to you, and I'm sure we'll get a chance to meet one of these days.
Thank you so much, Mr. Thadani. It was an absolute pleasure.